Hi guys. So today we are doing live with Shonali, and for everyone joining in, I'm so sorry the live is running a little late. And today we are going to talk about PCOD related diet and nutritional recommendations, what you should be eating, because of course that is a very important part to the entire management of PCOD. We have been talking about management through your lifestyle. We have been talking about what tests to be done. We have been talking about what medications are to be taken. But the most important part of the entire management of PCOD lies with your diet and nutrition. So we are going to talk about a good diet and what kind of things can be prevented in your diet to regulate your hormones. And if you're having any hair fall related issues with your PCOD, what kind of diet is recommended with that. And together with that, we're also going to talk about lean PCOD, because the dietary restrictions and recommendations for lean PCOD is little different than the regular PCOD. So I'm just waiting for our co-host to join us. She is a very well-renowned nutritionist who talks about healing your body through diet, and that is what we also believe. Whatever you eat is what makes the way you are, be it your skin, be it your hair, be it your hormones. Everything have a big correlation when it comes to your diet. So of course, when it comes to PCOD, we have also had a lot of recommendations through Ayurveda as well, what kind of herbs should be included. We also have a lot of recommendations when it comes to like having a diet which is low in glycemic index. That is very important. But we are going to be handling more and more precise questions. We're going to talk about how important is it to leave milk, for example, because we did talk about that having an anti-inflammatory diet is important. And when we talk about anti-inflammation, it is very important to remove milk, gluten, sugar from your diet. So these are three major inflammation causing. And when we talk about anti-inflammatory products, then of course turmeric is the most important anti-inflammatory product. I'm just waiting for her to send me a request so that I can make a join. Till then, I'll take your questions. Nida wants to know, she has broken capillaries on the face. Okay, here she is. I'm going to turn off the comment section. Please send in all your question queries in the question mark tab so that we can take them up towards the end of the session.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, how are you? So sorry, running a little late.
That's
Generally,
okay.
my lives are at 5 o'clock, so for some reason, I lost track of time.
All right.
How have you been?
Good.
So I'm
Very
taking
good.
the comment section, Shonali, so that we can, do our discussion about PCOD related nutrition and diet, and then we will open the tab for the questions. So
Sure.
for my viewers, would you like to give a brief introduction about yourself?
Well, I'm a macrobiotic nutritionist and a chef and instructor. I've been practicing for about 13 years, and I work more in the disease reversal space. I'm doing anywhere from from the most serious like cancer, ulcerative colitis, many gut cases. That's my core specialization. But leading up to the gluten intolerance, candida, reverse T3, thyroid, just about everything. I take up anything
Wonderful.
that comes my way.
And gut is the core thing basically when it
Yeah.
comes to be it your skin, be it your hair, be it your
Right.
hormones, is the core, because if your gut is happy, everything is happy. So
Right.
what especially do we mean by macrobiotic diet, Shonali?
Macro means large, bios means life. So
Hmm.
when I was looking for an approach for my father who had prostate cancer, I was looking for something that we could use to strengthen blood condition and eliminate disease once and for all. And macrobiotic made the tall claim of reversing cancer. So it was a cancer curing diet,
Okay.
and Japanese in origin, taken to America, perfected there. So therefore, I just felt like I should go on a path where I can, because he was in stage 4, last stage, prostate cancer. So something that would keep his cancer down. And there was a written book by a doctor who had done the same, kept his cancer down with the diet. That's what motivated me to take it on.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Shonali, as you are aware, we are talking about PCOD in this life, talking
Yeah.
specifically for the teenage girls who are facing one or the other issues. PCOD is not showing in their blood reports or their scans as of now. But when you look at them, you can tell, she is a PCOD patient because
Right.
they have high androgens, they are kind of obese, they have insulin sensitivity like hyperpigmentation on their neck or the perioral area. So what do you suggest for them that who are still not under medication but they're borderline PCOD patients? What should they start doing?
So one of the people, wherever you read, whenever you read about PCOD, no one tells you why you get it.
Hmm.
Okay, no one's really focusing on why it's happening. Uh, what is your theory? Why do you think it's happening?
See, I believe that, of course, having done so many lives, I've learned so much that it is definitely a lifestyle disorder, but it is our diets, our sedentary lifestyle, which is bringing it out more and more common in us, especially, women and who are sitting day to day, and we are not able to go out as much. We are not doing that kind of cardio activity, and the processed food that we are consuming, that is raising inflammation. They're highly concentrated with sugars, and we end up choosing wrong choices like diet sodas, which are even more harmful than natural soda. So all these wrong choices and lifestyle, I believe, has led to this surge in
So
PCOD.
I'd
What?
like to put another spin on it. That is the
Hmm.
lineage that I come from. The macrobiotic
Oh,
lineage that we come from, we look at the energy of foods and we look at how you're eating and the kind of foods you're eating. All right. It'll help people understand PCOS women as to why they eat like that. All right.
hmm.
Because we come from the approach of balance. So if you're eating in balance, then you'll remain in balance. If you're eating on extreme sides, PCOS we know has a close relationship with high insulin levels, right?
Yeah.
So people who are you get it because you're not you're eating on extreme foods. What do I mean by that? If you're eating a lot of sugar, okay, you're going to look, which is an expansive food. Sugar has the energy to go in and expand you and distend you and raise your energy up, so it's an upward energy. You're going to
Hmm.
look to make balance with the wrong foods that are going to bring down that energy. So a lot of sugar consumers are also very chronic egg consumers. Egg makes for contracted dense energy.
Hmm.
Similarly, a lot of people who consume a lot of coffee, which is again expansive, are looking at something at the opposite end of the spectrum to balance it. All right.
Hmm.
Processed and refined foods not only bring in a lot of additives, high fructose corn syrup,
Yeah.
preservatives, and all of that, which is also throwing off the cravings. All
Hmm.
right. But those cravings then cause you to make balance and go to the opposite end of the spectrum, okay,
Very
of
well.
foods. So
Hmm.
there's this imbalance in foods which you've got to look at. On one end of the spectrum, you have refined oils, which India is big on. All right, Indians are
Hmm.
huge on refined oils. You have salt, so salt goes on the contracting side of the spectrum. So if
Hmm.
you're going to have a lot of sugar and dairy, which it causes expansion, you're going to crave a lot of salt and eggs and meat. So
Very
what's
well.
happening with people is most girls I see and most women coming to me today and most teenagers with
Hmm.
PCOS, they are running between two extremes all day long. Okay, not
Hmm.
knowing that if they just eat foods coming from nature, foods which are closer to our human consciousness and our body, like for example, you make good sugars by having a good whole grain, which is a millet or a brown rice. You include your lentils, legumes, you include a good Indian plate, all right? You include your
Hmm.
greens, you include your nuts and seeds, good fats coming in, cold pressed oils, good omega 3s. Omega 6 is where the pro inflammatoriness is coming in because you're having refined oils, which the omega 6 is coming from. So, when you eat closer to nature, you're eating closer to balance and you're not going through all these extreme foods, which is what PCOS, the nature of PCOS is all about. All right, your body cannot assimilate this. So what it starts doing for you is in the biggest area where women have passageways, like we have the fallopian tubes and we have our ovaries and we have our uterus. Women, have this area over here, which then has the tendency to hold on to all that toxicity that can't be expelled out of
Hmm.
the system. And therefore, that holding on makes for cysts.
Hmm.
Okay, so when you understand the energy of what's going on, you can reason out better and then come to a sensible conclusion and say, look, let me stop eating these extreme foods and let me eat in balance so that I can bring back my condition into balance. A lot of women have reverse, unless it's very chronic. A lot of women have multitude cysts on their ovaries. In
Yeah.
that case, it gets problematic and they need surgery. But in very many cases, you can bring down the symptoms coming out of it, because we all know, like you said, androgens and insulin dance together. It's a dance
Mm.
that goes on together. They tango
Mm.
together. So what happens is that when you have insulin resistance, we know that there's a lot of estrogen which is thrown out in the system, because there's a key protein which is not
Yeah.
letting it bind, right? So when you have that happening, then you get the testosterone symptomatic problems like excessive hair or whatever they're going to get, coming
Yeah.
out here most of the time and stuff like that. Also, we know that they are in an ovulatory cycle. So what's happening is there's a lot of estrogen floating around in the system. All right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
now they're not being taught by the gynecologists that, listen, how do you eat to get it out also? You have to eat to get your testosterone out. You have to eat to get your estrogen
Very,
out as well. So one thing is that, okay, you balance their diet out with, these foods which are more stable. You teach them not to eat junk. You tell them, listen, this is why you're making for imbalance. You're having too many eggs. So listen, it's too much of contracted energy. Make for a lot of people don't look at food like that. A woman will come in and say, I've got PCOS, I've got these classic symptoms, and you tell them, stop having processed and refined and stop having sodas. But you can do your egg. It's okay. I don't think it's good to do your egg, because PCOS is a gland which is
okay.
also a contracted young, what we call in macrobiotic terminology, contracted gland. And
Mm.
anything contracted like an egg is going to hurt it.
Okay.
Now, no one looks at the disease like that,
Ab-
except for the lineage which I'm coming from. That tends to look at disease like that. It looks at it differently. To break the disease, you got to also look at the foods you're eating that's hurting that disease or hurting that ailment. So in
Very
this
well.
case, PCOS. What is hurting PCOS? All right. So it
So,
goes a step
uh,
beyond
just to make,
just.
you're sharing a lot of information, but just to like for the viewers to know, what are those energy dense foods you were talking about? What are those
So
energy to
stop
avoid?
having these erratic. So on one end of the spectrum, people are having coffees because our lifestyles are extremely stressed now. So we are
Mm-hmm.
pushing ourselves with stimulants. So
Yeah.
coffees, teas, sodas, caffeine, all that
Okay.
Red Bull, and your alcohol consumption going up. You're pushing yourself with 2-3 cups of coffee a day. You're having Indian masala chai. Okay.
That's also
Then you're
caffeine.
having animal protein. A lot of them are having a lot of animal protein. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're having, so I'm talking about this contracted element side, which is salt. Salt is a very contracted. The moment you have salt, you want to release it by having water,
Yeah.
because you're trying to balance the salt. So therefore they're
Yeah.
having this. Then on this end of the spectrum, a lot of them are having dairy, a lot of them are having sugar, a lot of them are having too many spices, a lot of them are having a lot of processed and refined stuff, all right, and refined oil. A lot of them, Indian tradition is very big on high heat refined oil cooking,
Yeah.
which leads
Yeah.
to free radical damage, which leads to a breakdown, oxidative stress, right? So all day long, they're going through this yo-yo
Yeah. They
between
either have
these
this
foods.
or you have to
Right.
balance it out
And
for
they're
both.
running to make balance between these two extremes. Now, what I'm saying to you is, if they just come back to an Indian plate, which is a good whole grain, okay, you could be able to digest gluten. A lot of people are not necessarily gluten intolerant. So it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that you need to take everybody off gluten when they've got PCOS. They may be
Mm.
able to digest it, right? Whole wheat, a good whole wheat is still a good whole grain coming in than a white bread, or
Yeah.
then a pizza dough, or then a burger bun, right? So you look at your grains, you look at your lentils and legumes, more plant-based diet. Bring down your animal protein consumption to a side dish rather than the main dish. All right.
Mm-hmm.
You have your vegetables, you have your greens, you have your nuts and seeds, you have your cold pressed oils, you have good foods bringing in good fats. All right. So that brings you into a balance. And I've done
Okay.
these charts in my book to explain people how this extremeness doesn't work. I've got two good books, Beauty Diet, Detox Diet. It explains this system to them
Lovely.
very well, and how
Mm.
they need to eat more in balance, and how they need to eat foods which are more closer to nature, which is more akin to our Indian diet or a Western diet for that matter, rather than going out there and eating junk.
Very
Right?
well.
We also know that dairy is a big culprit today, because dairy is mutated. It's not the same dairy that your grandfather and my grandfather were having. It comes to you in a Tetra Pak. It's been homogenized, pasteurized, stripped of everything, and it's giving more hormones to you, upsetting your own hormonal rhythm. So dairy doesn't work anymore. So a lot of girls are freely having their cheese and freely having dairy. And, I know North India is huge on its dairy. You know what I mean? So this dairy consumption has to be monitored. All right. Because when you have, so that's one thing. One thing is taking your diet in your own hands and knowing how you work with these extremes. PCOS is a ailment of extremes. It's when you've
Yeah.
really gone, or you've deprived yourself of protein, carbohydrates, and fat. So a lot of girls who are on diets, a lot of girls who are on these yo-yo diets, they go on these crazy keto, paleo, depriving themselves from eating their carbs, blah blah blah. They don't realize that they need the fiber from good carbs to excrete, to feed their gut bacteria, to get out all that shit from their system, which is a lot of estrogen and testosterone floating around. All right. So that
Tell
missing link is not explained to them.
Wonderful. But tell me something, Shonali, like for someone who is, losing weight and wants a high protein diet and is also vegetarian, and you said, to abstain from having eggs and red meat, what should be an ideal rich diet for a PCOD patient be?
So, like I said, more plant-based protein. Okay,
Which is,
eat your meat if you want in moderation. So bring it down, bring the consumption down. Increase the consumption of your vegetables. Increase the consumption of your brassica group of vegetables because that clears out estrogen. Increase the consumption of your crucifers. All right, that clears out the estrogen. Just remember to clear it out. Your estrogen is cleared out through the liver pathways. So you need
Mhm.
good liver pathways to cleanse. And most people who have this problem also have a lethargic liver. All right.
Yes.
So you need to have a lot of greens because your liver loves greens. So you have to aid the liver detoxification process with that. All right. Then you get your good quality fats in coming from your foods. And then you look at your oils. You look at cold pressed oils because Indian cooking typically we use oil.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're addressing an Indian population, then the oil factor comes in. All right. So you're looking at the cold press variety. You're
Mm.
looking at anywhere from an olive to a sesame to a whatever's cold press will work. All right.
Mm.
You're looking at good quality salt. So you're looking at pink salt, or you're looking at sea salt, or you're looking at rock salt. All right. You're
Mm.
looking at nuts and seeds. You're looking at a good whole grain. You're looking at your millets and your brown rice being your main whole grains. All right. And then
Yeah.
you're looking at supplementation. So now you're looking at, okay, and you're looking at low GI foods. I think you've said that a lot on your page. I went through
Yeah.
your page quite a bit. So you
Yeah.
educate people with that. So you're looking at foods which have low glycemic index because you're working with insulin. And then
Yeah.
you're, of course, you being in the field are advising people with supplements. So you're looking at chromium, you're looking at zinc supplementation, you're looking at inositol, you're looking at vitamin D. These are the basic supplements. And a lot of people who have insulin imbalance can work with cinnamon. They can have cinnamon infused water because we know that that slows the uptake of insulin into your fat cells because a lot of
Yeah.
women have a lot of fat, during this time. So you're slowing that down. And then I think one of the most neglected areas, which is where I come in and I talk a lot about, is taking care of your gut. So
Mm.
looking at how you're feeding the gut bacteria is very important. Most women who come with PCOS problems, and actually all ailments, all right, have a underlying gut problem
Yeah.
going on.
I was coming to that.
Everybody is suffering with leaky gut. Yeah,
Yes.
everybody is
Good health.
suffering with leaky gut. From some, it's either mild or it's either severe or it's either very severe. Because a lot of the PCOS people also have a thyroid going on side by side, or they are pre-diabetic. All this is going on, and
Yeah.
that's also telling you a lot about how their gut works. So if you want to feed your gut bacteria, then you have to look at, because there's a new term in the West called estrabolome. It's estrogen
Mm.
and microbiome. Those
Mm-hmm.
two words together, it's a subset of the microbiota which only is responsible for elimination of estrogen. All
Oh.
right. So
Mm-hmm.
how are we going to take all that free flowing estrogen, which is where all the cancers then come into play?
Yeah.
Breast cancer, all estrogen dependent cancers are now coming into play. So if in your now years you're not taking care of it, in the later years this is going to show up in your life.
Yeah.
Why is breast cancer happening so much? This is the only reason. So then you have to tell them that, okay, if you strengthen the liver pathways and if you strengthen the gut bacteria, then you're helping yourself, because this bacteria makes an enzyme which pushes your estrogen back in. This free flowing estrogen, instead of getting excreted out, goes back. So it gets recycled back into the bloodstream. So then you have all this estrogen floating around, which is a perfect environment for cancer to initiate, right?
But so what are those foods?
So then you start including, like I said, you take care of your liver with greens, and you start eating a lot of crucifers, because they have compounds in there which help you to excrete the
But
estrogen.
hypothyroid, we generally, like in medical terminology, we tell them to avoid cruciferous
It's
vegetables.
wrong. It's wrong,
Wrong.
because
But
that is
what
in its raw state.
all
That's in
throughout the
its raw
nitrogen
state. No.
vegetables.
So your goitrogens get neutralized when you cook. So when
Okay.
you cook your gobi or cauliflower, or you're cooking your cabbage, and you can actually have it quite okay. You can eat it. What the doctors are missing to tell you is, because they don't work with the cooking aspects of it, and that's where, it's good to be a cook and a nutritionist, is this particular thing, that when you cook with it, you are neutralizing it and you can eat it very safely, and it's
You can
actually
have
good for you.
bowls full of broccoli, which will be good for your liver,
Yeah,
good for
bowls full of broccoli with lemon tahini sauce. I steam cauliflower and I just have it with a little gomasio on it. You don't need much. You have a bowl every day of a good brassica family, like you do your kale, you do your pak choy, all these
yeah.
greens.
Yeah.
It's all gonna help, and it's a green, so it's gonna help your liver. So it's gonna help your liver. It's gonna help your gut excrete out all that testosterone and estrogen that you don't need floating around, that is causing a problem. And that's where a lot of people, a lot of docs, I mean, not, I don't mean it to you, but I mean
No, it's very
gynecologists
informative.
need to educate their clients, or need to bring it out and say, look, if you do this, this is going to happen, and listen to it, because there is someone saying it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's one thing to talk about diet, which needs fix, and supplementation which needs fix, but it's also another very important element in this whole discussion of PCOS, to talk about what are we doing with testosterone and estrogen floating around, because those are the
It's just
two
we have
things.
to push it out of the
You have to
body.
push it out of the body, and you
Yeah.
need foods to push it out of the body. How are you
Yeah.
going to push it out? Trifla is not going to push it out.
Absolutely.
So, and then you're looking at feeding gut bacteria with fermentation. So fermented foods need to come in. Lactic acid fermentation needs to come in. So you need to feed your gut bacteria with prebiotics, and you need to feed your gut bacteria with high fiber foods. Okay, so you're eating your vegetables, your nuts, and everything has fiber, right? Everything you're eating
Yeah.
has residual fiber, which is going to feed the gut bacteria. And you're eating a good portion of, a little portion of fermented foods every single day, so that you are bringing in the good bacteria to maintain that ecosystem, which is going to help you balance out and not help oncogens from thriving, or not
Very
help
well.
aberrant cells from coming in.
Very
So
well.
that's basically what you should be doing.
Yeah.
And if you do that, there is no way why you cannot reverse that whole PCOS.
So tell me something, Shonali. There are kind of PCOD patients that I see who are also more towards the lean PCOD side. They don't look PCOD, they're not obese, but when you check their blood levels, then they're all off. It's majorly due to inflammation. That's what our medical studies say. What do you suggest for them?
See, everything is the root cause of every disease is inflammation.
Yeah.
Okay, so whether they are fat, they call them skinny fat. So their fat levels may be higher, but they are skinny. The girls are skinny, but if you check their BMI and their fat levels, that you're going to find a spike there. All right. So that doesn't mean they are healthy just because they're skinny, right?
Yeah.
It means there is stuff going on in there, and if they've got inflammation, then they've got to look at it. And how do you control inflammation? If you get inflammation with food, you're going to control the inflammation also with food. And
Yeah.
leaky gut happens to be a very big part of the whole inflammatory process. A lot of the women who have it are already have got gut issues going on. All right. So again, you go back to taming the gut. You go back to looking after the gut. You go back to feeding it the right foods. You go back to fermented foods. You go back to a diet which is, you get them off all this junk that they are doing. You try to get them better lifestyles. A lot of women who are suffering with thyroid and PCOD have very bad lifestyles. They are keeping awake late at night. They have late night snacks. They skip breakfasts because they're on crazy intermittent fasting diets, which are good for some people but maybe not great for them. So they are being deprived of protein, carbohydrate, and fat, and that's again spiking their insulin levels. So a lot of them don't realize that already the stuff that they're doing is worsening this whole insulin thing that's going on, this yo-yo that's going on, and therefore they are pushing their body. So they need to be told, like, listen, you don't only have to calm your diet to calm inflammation, you have to also calm your lifestyle. You have to have regular sleeping habits, eating. Now, a lot of people think, oh, this is so simplistic, it's baby stuff. No, it's not. Try doing it. Try
Important.
telling a person who's got thyroid or PCOD or pre-diabetes that now you have to sleep at 10:30 every night. They will not be able to do it. My clients can't do it. I've got one reverse T3 and one thyroid client right now. They can't control their sleep. They're sleeping at 2, 3 in the morning. And I've been telling them for the last month, can you just make this one change, please? Really requesting them, because it's going to impact so much more. But they just think, no, if we eat healthy, we'll be fine. But that's not the way it works. Lifestyle has a lot to do with it.
Like a lot of PCOD patients have a lot of issues when it comes to hair fall and acne. Not all PCOD patients have it because this is majorly due to hyperandrogenism. So anything specifically you will suggest them?
So here's the story with hair. Again, I go back to the lineage which I come from. Hair signifies good blood condition. Okay? It signifies a blood condition which has a good pH balance. All right? That shows up in hair. Hair is the sign of how healthy you are. All right? In a nutshell, that's what hair is. Now, most women who have a PCOS with the hair fall, their DHT levels are off.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of doctors are not looking at that. I've had 2, 3 women in the last month who've come to me and said, oh, but our doctor never asked us to do this test. And I say, no, do it. I want to see your numbers. All right? Why are docs? And one woman even told my client, a Delhi-based client, saying, what is this DHT? I don't know. I was in shock. I said, how can you even say that? I mean, if you've studied what the disease is, you know what's going to push the disease. All right? You know what's going to push the ailment. So DHT is very key. Your DHT levels are going to be through the roof.
Absolutely.
Right?
But it's a major.
Yeah, so you have to then start working. Like I've worked with hair. See, blood condition takes 4 months to change. Cells condition takes 2 years to change. So you can be a new you in 2 years, and you can be having good blood condition if you stay on a good diet for 4 months. All right. So typically I tell people who come to me for hair fall, it's going to take you 4 months. Now, whether you're with me for 4 months or whether you want to continue for 4 months, if you're going to go back to eating the way you did, you're going to go back to the way you were. So this has to become your lifestyle. It's not a short-term diet, right? So if you start eating right and eating well, then there's no reason why your hair should grow. But what they start doing in the bargain is they start using things like minoxidil, and then they get on these medication. Now, already these women have a weak gut, and we all know that the medication is killing the good gut bacteria also. The excessive amount of medication, antibiotics, painkillers, this is all eliminating anything you're going to do with your gut. So when I tell them they have to go off their medication, it's very hard for them because they think these things are going to make their hair grow, but they don't realize that actually hair growth is a very internal process. Till you are not absorbing all that good protein for your hair or for your skin, you are not going to grow back your hair. It's as simple as that. If you're going to just use minoxidil, it's a temporary thing.
Yeah, but which are your top 5 superfoods for hair?
I would say good quality protein. Okay. While I do believe in plant-based protein, I do work with a lot of people who are on non-vegetarian food. So good quality protein, a good quality whole grain. And I like working with brown rice. Contrary to what people say that, grain carbs are not good, I just think that anything to do from the brown rice to the millet spectrum has an array of antioxidants coming to you naturally. All right. Working with, so that's my top 2, that's my number 2 food. Then I would say working with vitamin C. All right. So that there's some amount of immunity. So whether you're working with avla or whether you're working with lime, something coming out of a food. I would say the 4th thing would be any fermented food. So whether you're working with a kanji or whether you're working with, quick pickle, or whether you're working with, or both, or you're working with, a good, sauerkraut, or you're working with a kefir. Okay. These are, a fermented food needs to be in there. And I would say the 5th I would put down to, and much against my own, this thing is bone broth, because bone broth gets you very good of everything. It's got the collagen, it's got L-glutamine for the, intestine lining and everything. So it's a complete food in itself. So I would say working with a good bone broth. Those would be my top 5.
Wonderful. So you have been talking a lot about plant-based proteins. Which are your favorite plant-based
So
proteins to go for, or should they take powders?
So here's the story on plant-based. If you keep a balanced diet plan, all right, you have your grain, you have your legume lentils, you have your fatty beans, which are your rajmas and your chickpeas and your chanas and all that, at least 3-4 times a week, and you have your split lentils. You keep your leafy greens in, you keep your vegetables in. That's a balanced plate giving you good protein, okay? And you need to supplement. You want to take it up a little bit, have an amaranth, which is high on protein, rajgira, or you have a
Yeah,
quinoa, again high on
yeah,
protein, coming from the family of seeds and not from the family of cereal grains. But if you want good quality, like if you're working out, for example, I work out, I have a very intense functional training workout, and I feel like I really need the protein, then there are a lot of plant-based protein powders in the market now. Indian market is doing very well. You have Ace Blend, you have
yeah.
Olena, you have a lot of plant-based protein out there. So you have Unived, you have a lot of companies selling you good protein powders, and top it up with chia, or have it in a smoothie, or have it in water. That takes up your protein as well.
Wonderful.
So I haven't found myself deficient on protein even though I'm
Great.
plant-based.
So Shonali, like generally, people always have these secrets that they follow in the morning, like empty stomach, I take this shot, that shot. Which are your suggested secrets for women to balance their hormones, have a good skin and hair? Like the top 3 shots that they should have in the morning, empty stomach.
So the one is a hot lemon water, warm water with lemon and a pinch of chili pepper, because it
Okay.
stimulates kain, which stimulates your liver. So that's one shot. One would be an infused water with chakra fool, because star anise, because it gives you it. If you infuse it in the night, it tends to pull out all the bloatedness that goes on with women having
It's very
issues.
good for even acidity and even for,
Yeah, yeah, because
wonderful.
it's a very good, very powerful
Mm-hmm.
spice. All right, and the other would be for women, especially in the PCOS. I think cinnamon water does very well. So
Wonderful.
cinnamon and mint together. In the morning, or I even sometimes do methi. Methi is very good for people with hair fall. So I've done
Yeah.
methi seeds for long periods of time in my life. That's again giving you a lot. Just you soak it in warm water and chew the seeds with the water in the morning.
Okay. Okay.
So
And very
yeah,
good for insulin sensitivity, right? It brings
yeah,
down your.
yeah. So it's very good. Yeah.
You can even mash it up, make a powder, and add it to your
About
hair.
hair, yeah. But I just like chewing, because also it's bitter and the liver loves bitter food. So
Lovely.
methi
That's
makes for good for liver detoxification.
and can we like mix them all together, like mixing up our methi seeds or zira powder and the star anise? Can we all mix it up and make a concoction out of it? Is it
I
okay?
don't see why not. If you take
Yeah.
one of each, why not? You could mix it up. You could have
Yeah.
a water infused with it, or you could have, because all the tattva comes out in the water anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Another thing I'd like to add, actually, which I think I could leave you with a lot of insight right now, is that there are these insulin leaves that I covered on my page,
Oh,
coming
yeah.
from a particular
And
plant.
it looks
Yeah.
very interesting.
And if
Yeah.
you can chew on them in the morning and evening, one leaf in the morning, one leaf in the evening, it brings your in. So it's very good for people who are pre-diabetic, and people who have insulin sensitivity could use one leaf a day.
I saw that post of yours. That was really
Yeah.
good. That,
There's a question here. What sugar substitutes would you
yeah.
recommend for people? So stevia is a good sugar substitute, but it's got a terrible aftertaste.
Yeah.
Also, coconut sugar would work. But again, try staying off sugars. You don't really need sugars. You can have fruit, a nice bowl of fruit for a while at least, till you bring it into balance.
And what
Then
about
you
dates,
start
Shonali?
working with, okay, coconut sugar, or you work with fruit pulp, or you work with whatever. But for the time that you are trying to bring your insulin levels under control, try not doing the sugar.
And what about dates or maybe gur? What do you think about that?
Again, good is unprocessed sugar, right? It's still going to, over the long run, send your insulin levels spiking.
Yeah.
And you said gur and dates. Dates is very concentrated sugar. Dried fruit is concentrated sugar.
Yeah.
So it's not going to do well for you when you've got insulin problems.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so you should be sticking to,
keep
have
doing
a mango. Yeah,
even better.
don't be afraid of your mangoes. Better to
There's a
have a
question.
mango in the day than have have a good or something like that.
So I
Your
love to have
cooking
a
oil should be
cinnamon on top. It's
you're getting
lovely.
a question here on cooking oil should be cold pressed. Anything cold pressed, or if you want to, olive is good also, and you can even do. The thing about olive is to remember that when we cook with olive oil, to do everything on a medium heat and not on a very high heat. That's good to remember about olive oil. But you can, for those of you who want to stretch it, go to avocado oil if you want to stretch your purse a little bit because it is expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I use anywhere from a sesame to a coconut to an olive. I have all the blends in my kitchen. So whatever
Wonderful.
cooking I'm doing, whatever style I'm doing, I'll use it accordingly.
Shonali, I have a question here from Gunjan who's saying I have IBS and what natural probiotic should I take?
You should be introducing fermented foods. You should be looking at, there's a lovely girl called Disha in Delhi. She does a
Yeah.
good array of fermented foods.
Yeah.
So you can look at her kanji. She's got kefir. You can make quick pickles. I've got great recipes on my IGTV. You can go down there and see it. Whatever you do, if you're not going to do it from foods and you're going to take an over-the-counter probiotic, chances are if your gut is weak, you're not going to absorb it in any case.
Yeah, because the bacteria strength in the
Yeah,
over.
so it's better to do it through foods initially.
Yeah. And what about South Indian food? Does it also come under the
Yeah,
fermented?
also fermented,
Right?
very good. Yeah, but it's not, for really to build up good gut bacteria, you need lactic acid fermentation. What we
Yeah.
call lactic acid bacteria, LAB. You need
Mm-hmm.
that. And that only comes from a longer ferment like a sauerkraut or a kimchi or a vegetable press or even a kanji
Mm.
would give it to you.
Kanji is lovely.
Yeah.
So there's a question about for people who have lots of belly fat. So with PCOD patients, we also see that they have their, as you said, even for lean PCOD, their fat content is very high. So
Yeah.
how to reduce the fat percentage or the fat content in the body?
Workout.
Workout. No
That's
foods.
the only answer, and work hard on your diet.
And what about apple cider vinegar?
Insulin levels are very that belly pouch that you get, that belly, that typical diabetic belly.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a tendency telling you right there that listen, if you don't look after it, you're heading towards pre-diabetes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And the only way to get rid of it is to really engage in movement, right? And
Also,
control your diet, control all these
I read about
pro-inflammatory
some
things.
foods which help in breaking down the fat, like apple cider vinegar, grapefruit. What is your take on them?
I believe it's good to do along with a good diet. There's no point in doing a bad quality diet and then doing apple cider vinegar and grapefruit, right? Have your diet under check, which means get out all the sugar and refined carbs in the first place, because those are your high GI
Yeah.
stuff, right? That's where the bulk comes from. So get out the sugar on every level. Then if you do your grapefruit and then if you do your ACV, you're fine. But if
Yeah.
people are going to do their ACV and still do all of the rest, it's not going to work.
Of course, it's all together. You can't choose one
Yeah,
thing, not
yeah.
do the rest. I have a question here for someone who is asking about a good breakfast routine. Like
Breakfast routine.
breakfast, how we
Yeah, so
spoke about
I
thoughts.
always make sure that your breakfast has a good complex carbohydrate sugar coming out
Mm-hmm.
of a whole grain, which could be anywhere from a brown rice poha to a brown rice idli to a brown rice chila, because anything to do with millet or brown rice in the morning sets up 8 hours of sugar in the day. So it brings down your craving. So for those people who have insulin issues, who are going to be craving a lot more sugar, this is perhaps the best breakfast that they can do.
Wonderful. Great. I think we have covered most of the questions over here, and so much knowledge, Shonali. You have, extended us a plethora of information today. And I have a lot of questions from people over here asking about your book. Can you repeat the titles maybe for
Yeah,
them?
I've got two books, The Beauty Diet and The Detox Diet. The Detox Diet focuses more on the gut and what to do for the gut, leaky gut, inflammation and all of that. And the Beauty Diet focuses a lot about on the nuts and bolts of how to eat. and what to eat and what not to eat. So it's literally like volume 1, volume 2 of, good health. So you
Wonderful.
can
Also
choose,
ordering
start with
mine.
any of those books.
Wonderful. Very, very, very insightful indeed. And for all of you who want a session with Shonali individually, I'm sure you can inbox her on her Instagram and then she'll send you the details. And whenever we talk about diet, it's very important to understand it is just not one thing that works. You
Yes.
have to exercise. And if you are really, really extremely, your hormones are off and your endocrinologist has suggested you medication, that has to be there. And your
Yes.
diet comes a component together with it. So do
Right.
it all. Stay healthy, stay safe, and follow the healthy diet from Shonali. So
Thanks for having me.
thanks for your time with us. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye.